Okay, so we live in a beautiful city. We have the mountain, we have the ocean, but amidst all this beauty, we also have crime. We have violent crimes, we have gang wars, we have bad traffic accidents. And so one cannot help but feel a little bit imprisoned. This talk is about the care of a trauma patient at the district level. So now we know that that is essentially keeping the patient alive until they receive definitive care. It's essentially your ABCs. But that's not what I'm going to talk about today. I'm not going to regurgitate this to you because I'm sure you all know this all too well. Instead, if you let me, I'm going to take you back to a very similar case, a stab wound. There I was on my normal Saturday afternoon at work in the Cape Flats, and I was minding my own business, doing what I normally do, and the pre-recess alarm goes off. So for some of you who haven't worked at Khayelitsha District Hospital, what is a pre-alarm? This is essentially the sound of squeaking tires as a car comes to a stop outside of the window, followed by the porters rushing in, looking for a bed or a trolley or anything to carry a patient. And so now at this stage, you know that someone's about to come in, someone unstable. And through the doors comes someone carrying an almost lifeless body. And at this stage, he places this body down on a bed that magically appeared. And in that moment, I didn't ask why or what. All I knew is that I needed to save this boy. So how did he manage to end up there? He was playing in the park, like all children do, with another 12-year-old. They got into a fight. The 12-year-old and him started running. He chased the 12-year-old home. The 12-year-old held up a knife in his house and he ran into the knife. So it wasn't your average crime, criminals, bad wars or anything like that. This was an innocent accident. And so I want to tell you a little bit about the events preceding this picture. So really, everywhere else or in the ideal setting, we would press a buzzer and down descends everyone. We have a cardiothoracic surgeon, we have an anesthetist, we have a trauma resus team, and we have everyone else. But in our setting, that's not what we have. We have me, we have you, we have a few junior doctors, and if we're lucky, a few elective students. So we don't have such a comprehensive team, and we have to make do with what we have. So with this airway, I knew that had I intubated him there and then, I would kill this boy. Pre-hospitally, had he been intubated, his mortality was 50%. Had I put a tube down his throat, right there and then, he'd had a 30% chance of dying. Had I given him any drugs in his cold, hypotensive, hypoxic state, I'd also kill him. And I know that the most common cause for arrest, or one of the most common causes for arrest, is hypertension. So that's not what I did. I decided to resuscitate him. I gave him blood products, I warmed him. I did everything else before intubating him. I used my pre-intubation checklist, so my mantra, my stop IC bars, and by now all of you are so well versed in that. And I got everything ready. And this saves lives. It saves lives because it makes you think clearly in a chaotic situation. I looked at my shock index of the patient. He had a heart rate of 140. His systolic blood pressure was almost unrecordable. And I knew that his mortality was high. He had bilateral chest drains almost immediately. If you see a stab wound on the Cape Flats, they're hypoxic, they're breathing fast, they almost immediately get these chest drains and they happen so fast. So we're really, really well versed in this. Essentially the most important part in his management was his circulation, was keeping him warm, stopping his bleeding. So now we know that patients don't bleed saline, they bleed blood. And we know that normal saline or abnormal saline, as some of my mentors call it, is really not that great for patients. They cause fluid overload, they worsen your acidosis, they worsen your coagulopathy. And I'm not that old, but I was still taught to aggressively resuscitate my patient. Pour them full of fluids, keep your blood pressure above this level to keep them alive. But funny enough, we've been taught that this is not the way to do it. So what are my alternatives? Where we get this frequent message, we have enough blood for 2 days. The blood bank is running dangerously low. And on the other hand, you have a patient exsanguinating in front of you. What are your options where you don't have a blood bank? Where it will take hours getting cross-matched blood? Or where you have a certain limit of blood available, and you know that one patient can easily, on a weekend or weekday, deplete all that stock. So with this boy, he had already received his chest drains as he came in, and this chest drain filled with blood almost immediately. So now we know that the HB and the hematocrit is a little bit lower in this blood. It's not processed, it's not a cell saver. And before this, we would heparinize the intercostal drain because we thought the blood clotted. But I don't think any of you have seen anyone walking around with a chest drain with clots in it. I'm almost sure our patients would come to us saying, "Doctor, there's livers in my chest drain." This blood can essentially be transfused up to 6 hours back to our patients, but I don't want to be sitting on him for that long. I didn't want to at this stage. We also know that we cannot give it to him back contaminated, so there wasn't any diaphragmatic injury, there wasn't any bowel that could be in his chest that I knew. My other option was FDPs, made popular by the military. So really, on the Cape Flats with all these wars and crimes and gunshots, it really feels like we're at the military. This is easy to reach, it's available everywhere, it's basically stored anywhere. It doesn't expire as quickly. You don't need to get a porter to run to fetch it. The nursing staff will magically appear with it. So he got his FTPs. The next cocktail he got was his KFC, as we call it. So you're giving your trauma patient his Kefsol, his fentanyl, his cyclocapron. And made popular really by your CASH2 trial, your MATIS trial, your women's trial, and your multiple other trials, we know that there's a proven mortality benefit in giving this, and especially if you give it early, within 3 hours. So really, at the end of resuscitating this boy, I still found myself asking a question and answering, will my next step benefit him? Will doing a thoracotomy benefit my patient? And I didn't care about how this made me look. I didn't care about the fact that people would be talking about this for a long time. I cared about him. And as his lifeless body lay there, and someone started compressions, and I got ready to cut his chest. And obviously there was a pericardial effusion beforehand. I went into a different mindset. It's either I do or he dies. And this is what I had to do. And as a junior doctor, we've become so well versed in these procedures. This is something that a specialist would do at another place. This is something that they hardly get to do. Yet this is our bread and butter. We need to know how to do this in our sleep. And so we did it. And lucky for him, he survived. But not many do. And this is really your final salvage maneuver. So my take-home points, not everyone needs a tube, because it can kill you. Resuscitate them aggressively before. less fluid, like Matt said, it's bad for you. And it's still good in certain situations, so if there are any depths here, I do apologize. Stop the bleeding and give them blood. Give them cyclopentone, because it works. And a thoracotomy is only really indicated as a final step. So really, with these patients, don't stay and play. A district level hospital is not where he's going to receive this definitive care. He's going to receive care to keep him alive until his next step. Don't find yourself sinking. So as soon as they come in the door, they need to go out. And that's basically all. That's my story. Thank you. I'll be handing over to Nicole.